In a small village nestled deep within the African savanna, there stood an ancient baobab tree so massive that its branches seemed to reach for the heavens. The villagers called it Nyazi Miezi, the tree of eternal roots. It was said to be older than the village itself, its thick trunk holding the secrets of countless generations. The elders once spoke of the baobab's mystical powers, claiming it held the wisdom of the ancestors, but over time, this tale's faded into distant memories. Few believed in the tree's magic anymore, dismissing the stories as mere fables meant to entertain children. Kelele, a curious and adventurous young boy, often found himself drawn to the tree. While other children played in the fields or chased animals, Kelele spent his afternoons sitting in the shade of Nyazi Miezi, imagining the lives of those who had come before him. He felt a strange pull toward the tree, as if it held something meant only for him. On one particularly hot afternoon, as he rested against the tree's thick trunk, he was startled by a low, raspy voice. "What do you sit here, child of the earth?" the voice said. Kelele jumped up, his eyes darting around in fear, but he saw no one. His heart pounded as he pressed his back against the tree. "Who's there?" he stammered, his voice trembling. "I am Nyazi Miezi, the keeper of your ancestors' wisdom," the voice replied. Kelele stared at the tree, wide-eyed, realizing the voice was coming from the very heart of its ancient trunk. The boy's fear mingled with awe as he asked, "Why do you speak to me?" "You are a seeker of truth," the baobab said. "The village has forgotten its roots, its connection to the land and its people, but there is still hope. Will you listen to the secrets I have guarded for centuries?" Kelele hesitated, but his curiosity won out. "I will listen," he said, his voice steady now. The baobab began to tell him stories of the village's origins, of how the first people had planted the seed of Nyazi Miezi as a sacred covenant with the spirits of the land. Those ancestors lived in harmony with nature, valuing unity and balance. Over time, however, the villagers had grown distant from these traditions, focusing on their own needs instead of the collective good. Now, the land was suffering. The rains had ceased, the rivers were drying up, and the animals were fleeing. "The village is in danger," the baobab warned. "Unless the people remember their roots and restore balance, they will perish." Kelele felt a weight settle on his shoulders as the baobab gave him a task. He was to retrieve 3 sacred items that symbolized the forgotten values of the village. The Stone of Unity, hidden in a dry riverbed. The Feather of Harmony, guarded by a wise but elusive hornbill. And the Water of Memory, found only in a spring deep within the forbidden forest. These items, the tree explained, would help the village reconnect with its lost traditions. The boy set off on his journey the very next morning. His first challenge was finding the Stone of Unity. He arrived at the cracked riverbed where the stone was hidden and discovered 2 villagers arguing over the last remnants of water in a small, muddy pool. Their bickering grew louder as Kelele approached. Drawing on the lessons he had learned from the baobab, Kelele persuaded them to work together. Reluctantly, the villagers put aside their differences, and together they unearthed the smooth, glistening stone. Next, Kelele journeyed into the forest to find the Feather of Harmony. The hornbill, a majestic bird known for its intelligence, guarded the feather high in the trees. When Kelele called out to the bird, it refused to give up its treasure, demanding proof of his worth. Kelele thought of the songs his grandmother used to sing about living in harmony with nature. He sang softly at first, then louder as the melody filled the air. The hornbill, moved by the sincerity of his song, plucked a feather from its wing and dropped it into Kelele's hands. The final task was the most daunting. Kelele ventured deep into the forbidden forest, where the shadows seemed alive with whispers of doubt and fear. Guided by the voices of the ancestors, he pressed on until he found the spring. The water shimmered like liquid silver, its surface reflecting images of the past. Kelele filled a small gourd and hurried back to the village, determined to complete his mission. When Kelele returned, the villagers gathered around him, their curiosity piqued by his determination. He placed the stone, the feather, and the water at the base of Nyazi Mzizi, and as he did, the ancient tree began to speak. Its voice, deep and resonant, echoed across the village. It reminded the people of their roots, of the values they had forgotten: unity, harmony, and memory. The villagers listened in awe, many with tears in their eyes, as the tree called upon them to reconcile with one another and with the land. Moved by the tree's wisdom, the villagers joined together in a ceremony of renewal. They planted seeds around the Baobab, sang songs of reconciliation, and pledged to care for the land and one another. That night, as the ceremony came to a close, the sky darkened with heavy clouds. Rain began to fall for the first time in months, soaking the parched earth and bringing life back to the village. Kelele, once just a curious boy, became known as the keeper of secrets. The Baobab continued to whisper its wisdom to him, and he, in turn, shared it with the village. The tree, once overlooked and forgotten, became a symbol of renewal and hope. Its massive branches stretched toward the heavens, a reminder that even in the darkest times, the roots of wisdom and unity could guide them back to the light.